Hello, welcome to Casual Veteran Gamer. We are looking at some martial weapons today, melee martial weapons. We're going to be looking at short swords, Scimitar, Rapier, Morningstar, and Warpick. I've picked these next because they're all one-handed martial melee weapons. So I'm starting with the short swords. I've already got 2 equipped, and this is one of the first key facts about short swords is that they are light, which means you can dual wield them with another weapon, another light weapon. They're also finesse, so if you have a high dexterity, or use your dexterity instead. And one nice thing about short swords is every class that kind of would want to be able to dual wield can, or does have proficiency with them, plus elves also get proficiency with them. So although their damage is only 1d6, you are able to dual wield them. A relatively good amount of classes are proficient with them. One slight downside is that they only have 2 weapon abilities, and I think this is because they are light, maybe finesse weapons. So we have Flourish, which we've come across before. So if the target fails a dexterity saving throw, they have disadvantage on strength and dexterity checks, and attack rolls against the creature have advantage. This is nice, it's a bonus action as well, whereas lots of the other weapon abilities are actions. Obviously, this takes up your attack with your bonus action though. So if I was to use Flourish, let's go with this one. Ah, they're off balance, and now we have advantage on our attack rolls. We already did because they were blinded, so maybe it wasn't the best person to use off balance on. There we are. And the other weapon ability, again, we've come across this before, is Piercing Strike. So if you hit an enemy, they failed a Constitution saving throw, every attack afterwards will do 2 more damage. So let's try that. Piercing Strike. There we are, they failed, they got gaping wounds. So now every extra attack does an extra 2 damage. Now I've given the ranger here haste, so I can actually switch weapons around after loading. There we are. There's 10 damage plus another 2. So what am I going to rate the humble short sword? I really quite like it because it's finesse, it is light, and essentially rogues get proficiency with it, and they really, really need it, if I'm honest. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I'm not going to put it higher because the damage is 1d6, which isn't amazing. That's comparable to most of the simple weapons, but it's got a nice bonus action, weapon ability, Piercing Strike's okay, and any dexterity-based class will be able to use this if they have proficiency. Up next is the Scimitar, and to be honest, it's very similar to the short sword. The only difference really is that it has Lacerate instead of Piercing Strike, and also deals slashing instead of piercing damage. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same. Unfortunately, rogues don't have proficiency with scimitars, and you can't get it from any race, and so it's just not easily as used by as many people. Druids have access to scimitars. However, on the right screen, you're probably more likely going to be wanting to equip a club, so you can use Shillelagh if you're going to be attacking with a melee weapon as a druid. So let's give it a go. Let's use Lacerate. And what Lacerate does, it inflicts bleeding, which means that target takes 2 slashing damage at the start of the turn, and they have disadvantage on Constitution saving throws. And this is okay. Unfortunately, it's a Constitution saving throw to resist it, which I find a bit sad that I want to have an enemy with Lacerate to help inflict Lacerate. Anyway, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It still has the benefits of a short sword, being light and finesse, and 1d6 damage. I prefer Piercing Strike, and rogues get access to short swords and not scimitars. The remaining weapons are not light. I'm going to start with the Rapier. It is also a finesse weapon just like the short sword and Scimitar. It is one-handed and has Flourish and Piercing Strike just like a short sword, but it has this additional weapon ability called Weakening Strike, which is a strength saving throw to resist. It does a little bit of damage, 1d4 plus the strength modifier for this guy, and inflicts weak grip, which gives the target disadvantage on attack rolls, which is pretty cool, and strength saving throws. However, creatures without weapons can't have weak grip, and there are plenty of creatures out there without weapons. I'm fighting Eticaps at the moment. They don't have a weapon. The Spider Matriarch doesn't have a weapon. Anything that's some sort of beast definitely won't have a weapon. Obviously, lots of enemies do, but this is probably the only, saying this without really checking it, probably the only weapon ability that won't actually be able to affect every enemy. All the other weapon abilities will affect the enemy no matter what they are, who they are, and what they have. Anyway, I do like this weapon because it's finesse, which allows any character who is focusing on dexterity to have a decent melee weapon, and it's the last melee weapon that has the finesse property. As in, this is the highest damaging melee weapon with finesse, which is always going to make it a target for any character who doesn't want to be dual wielding and is focusing on finesse. And so I think, like the short sword, I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. It's going to see a lot of use by classes. I mean, you could have this on a rogue who isn't dual wielding. Maybe you give a rogue to moderately armored feet so they can wear a shield instead of dual wielding. Anyway, so I can't use, I shouldn't be able to use Weakening Strike. But although they failed their saving throw against Weakening Strike, it didn't do anything to them because they're not holding a weapon. So yeah, the best finesse weapon that's one-handed, or the best finesse weapon in terms of damage alone, obviously you might prefer to dual wield. So for me, as I already said, 8 out of 10. Our next weapon is a weapon I personally haven't used that much outside of the time that we were able to get a Morningstar that did 2d8 damage because we disarmed a bugbear. That's now been fixed. So we've got the Morningstar, 1d8 damage, one-handed. It's got 3 weapon abilities. It's not finesse and is completely based upon strength. One of the first weapon abilities here is when you miss an attack, deal. Basically, this 4 bludgeoning damage isn't set. It's based on the fact your strength is 18. So it's from the strength bonus damage that you have. So when you miss an attack, deal 4 bludgeoning damage anyway. I mean, this is nice. 4 damage is rarely the be-all and end-all, rarely is enough to finish off a character, because if it was, they'd only be on 4 hit points to begin with. But it's nice to make a start. It's good for people, actually like rangers, who can have Colossus Slayer, so they can start inflicting damage on extra damage on enemies, but you can only use it once per short rest. It's, I mean, like the other weapon abilities, and then at the end of the day, it's just 4 damage. I do find it nice when it works though, because it's a miss, and you're like, oh, no, I've missed. Yeah, but hey, look, I've done a bit of damage, better than nothing. And we have Heartstopper, and here I am proving myself wrong just mere minutes later from what I've previously said. So Heartstopper, let's go through what it does. First, 1d4 plus your strength modifier of damage. Not a huge amount, right? It's a low amount of damage. Smash an enemy's chest to deal that damage, and possibly inflict chest trauma. Undead and constructs can't get chest trauma, so here's another weapon ability that doesn't affect particular enemies. We don't come across too many undead and constructs in early access. We've got some skeletons, we've got some animated armor. There are a few zombies that can be summoned by Get Coal, but that's about it. There's not a huge number of undead. So I take back what I said about weakening strike. You know, what is chest trauma? Chest trauma has disadvantage on constitution saving throws. That's okay. That comes with a few other weapon abilities. But get this, has 1 fewer action. I think every enemy only has 1 action. Some of them attack twice. As far as I'm aware, that isn't 2 separate actions. I might be wrong with that. Even if it is 2 separate actions, that halves the amount they attack. And this is actually really, really good. Obviously, it's once per short rest like all the other weapon abilities, and they have to pass a constitution saving throw. So bosses are usually going to have a relatively good constitution. But if you can get this to work, that'll be good. So let's try it on this one. Oh, they made their saving throw. And the saving throw is pretty good. DC 16 for this guy. My guess is that 16 has come from 8 plus proficiency, which is 10, plus the strength and constitution modifiers added together. Bit of a guess. It's the only thing that seems to work out from the numbers that I've got here in front of me. But yeah, Heartstopper, if it works, amazing. Stops the enemy from attacking for 2 turns. And it also has, as we've seen in the previous videos, Concussive Smash. If they fail a constitution saving throw, they've got disadvantage on wisdom saving throws, good to help out your spellcasters, and can't take reactions, brilliant, and loses dexterity bonus to the armor class, also really good. So 2 out of these 3 abilities are amazing, as in Heartstopper and Concussive Smash. Tenacity is just okay. One thing that lets it down though is it's based on strength, so you're not going to be able to build any dexterity based character and do well with a Morningstar, and only a few characters are proficient with Morningstars anyway, being fighters, rangers, and barbarians. So if more people were proficient with Morningstars and it wasn't based on strength, maybe I would rank it higher, but it's got the maximum damage for any one-handed weapon. It's 1d8. So I'm going to give it another 7 out of 10. If more people were proficient, or if it was finesse, then it would be a higher score for me. And last up, we have War Picks. Much like Morningstars, they do 1d8 damage, they're one-handed, based on strength, piercing damage, and they've got 3 weapon abilities. The 3 weapon abilities are different though. We've got Crippling Strike, so it does 1d4 plus strength modifier of damage, and then possibly cripple them if they fail a constitution saving throw. And crippled means movement speed is reduced to 0 and has disadvantage on dexterity saving throws. Movement speed is 0. At first thought, to me, I think that's actually pretty good. I'd be quite happy with that. However, I passed the saving throw. However, most enemies will actually still be able to do something at range, even if it's just throw something, maybe cast a spell, have a ranged attack. Not all of them will, but some spiders might be able to spit some webs out or something, so it's still good, but it doesn't completely neutralize an enemy like Heartstopper would. Piercing Strike is okay. Nothing, I don't have any particular hatred towards that. And Weakening Strike, again, it's okay. It has disadvantage on attack rolls, but again, Heartstopper would be better if they don't have an attack roll in the first place. I'm just not overly impressed by War Picks, mostly because of their weapon abilities. We can get these weapon abilities even from simple weapons, or at least we can get Piercing Strike from simple weapons. And Weakening Strike and Crippling Strike, I think it could be better. There's nothing that really draws me towards the War Pick, but it's still 1d8 damage, it's still one-handed, so you can still have a shield with it. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. I've never used a War Pick as far as I can recall. Part of that is because we have magical weapons anyway. We don't find these until quite late, and no race is proficient with War Picks. So just like with the Morningstar, we've only got fighters, rangers, and barbarians who are proficient with them without having the feat that's Weapon Master. So let me know what you think of these weapons. I picked these weapons as a group because, yeah, they're all the one-handed weapons, but we've got a mixture of finesse and strength-based weapons. Thank you very much for watching. If you have made it this far, please consider subscribing, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.